The following is an extremely detailed study of my approach to applying Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and meditations to my life. I have unknowingly been video documenting my progress for 5 years. It contains confronting themes on depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, self-harm, and alcohol and drug abuse. It also contains joy and love, life experiences basically. Please watch this with self-discernment and use it as a frame of reference on your own journey, a grain of sand, if you will, of the many thousands you will pick up and examine to find your truth. Know that all people, places, and experiences are spoken with divine love. Welcome to my little TED Infinity talk. My name is Bear. First up, I'm going to ask you to take your seat. Your choice. You choose where. As you can see up the back, we have the peanut gallery. If you choose to sit here, you're more likely to commentate and speak in statements rather than query. We also have the ziffers up the back. They like to scoff. As if that's real, she's having us on. There's space here for all of you. Down here in the audience arena up the back, we have space for the curious and curiouser. I will happily answer any questions you have in order to help you on your way. Working our way up to the front, we have room for the believers, the people who know what's up, even if they don't quite know, they know. It's also a space for all the people who are actively doing Dr. Joe's work. Front and centre, this seat right here, this is for the people who feel unworthy, the people who are in struggle town, who can't breathe because the fear and anxiety, depression and pain is choking them. It's for anyone who has ever stood on the edge and tried to jump. I'm talking to you. Sit down and catch your breath for a moment. There's a little side section here for my besties, my friends who have personally known me for some time, the ones who I message this video to, as well as a seat for Dr. Joe, JD. Fun fact, you can change your seating at any time. You can leave if you like. If you're going to spend your space and time watching this, I am going to ask you to be here. Go all in with me. I don't want you too distracted because I have a lot of information to share with you. I'm told evidence is the loudest voice, and I have some rather obscure evidence that I want to share with you. I welcome your thoughts and conversations. If you watch everything I show you, get comfy in your seat, make sure the kids are in bed or at school, get your snacks and drinks, and buckle up. I'm only here as a frame of reference for you to be inspired to walk your own path towards your truth and to step into the unknown. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm showing you the steps I took to greet the unknown. Always talk to your doctor about your medication and health. I ask that you comment only if you have watched the entire video. And if you're serious about your growth, grab some paper and a pen, your journal and whatnot, and take note of whatever feelings come up during our little chat. Obviously, you will do what you want, so no harm done here and no pressure. I also want you to know I'm not affiliated with anyone apart from the divine. So the backstory, the old story, I was number 3 in a family of 6 and the eldest girl in a strict Catholic environment. Drinking, hypocrisy, fear of God and patriarchy feature heavily in the Catholic environment. My teenage years were filled with borderline anorexia, anxiety, depression, self-harm and suicidal thoughts. I started drinking heavily at 18, met my husband at 19 and had my first bub at 22. I quit drinking with my doctor's help at 30. He opened me up to looking at dopamine, its effect on the brain, and how we have to practice something 10,000 times to lay down those neural pathways for change or growth. We went travelling around Australia, which I know we wouldn't have done if I had have kept drinking. I found face painting on the road, a story in itself. I fell into it with a passion and fell pregnant with Bubba number 4. We returned home and I relapsed back into drinking in late 2016. Right, so 2018, March, 3 weeks before the Australian Body Painting Awards, and I've decided to compete again. If you know of Skin Wars, then you know a little bit about how this works. It's competition where you have to paint an entire body in a certain amount of hours. There's a theme and you are critiqued and marked on how well your technique is, how well you connect to the theme, etc. So my first body paint comp I entered was back in early 2016. The theme was Where Angels Fear to Tread, and here's a picture of my paint. That's my sister Chook, by the way. It talks about my lessons from quitting alcohol and how I found it hard to escape. So my goal here was to paint a body in 6 hours. It sounds like a lot of time, but it's not. I managed to do it and I was really happy with it, nowhere near competition level, and that's what I took away from that experience, was just how competitive body painting is. It's fascinating. So back to March 2018, I hadn't attempted another body paint and I was chatting to someone at school pickup about it, talking about how competitive it was, and I was like, you know what, I want to stand there as a competitor. That's my goal, right? And he was like, okay, so what do you need to do to make that happen? I went away and I had a little think about that, and this white hot fire lit up right here, right inside of me. I had no idea what that feeling was, where it came from, or what it was on about, but it was not a normal feeling to me. It wasn't a let's be passionate, I'm motivated, you got this type of feeling. I need you to understand, it lit me up inside, and I was like, let's go. So I walked around with that feeling inside of me. I practiced and painted and lived and breathed this body paint for 3 weeks, right? I was on another level of focus that I'd never felt before. The theme was a new dawn, and I worked on bringing a story to it. And 5 days in, I could feel new neural pathways growing in my brain. I can't explain how I could feel them, I just knew it was happening. I had all of this energy inside of me, and I walked around doing this, right? And I'd go up to my eldest son and I'd give him these little punch taps on his shoulder and talk about this energy that was inside of me, like, what's going on? And it was really wild. And I didn't really connect to that until my son said, hey Mum, do you think you can stop doing that? So after 3 weeks of painting and practicing, off I go with my sister. Yes, we were super excited to be doing it together again. Off we go to Melbourne to compete. And before the paint, I pull a card from this deck. I have just nice affirmation type things, and it's this card. I didn't think much of it, and you know when you're doing that, you're like, that doesn't mean anything to me, so I shuffle again. And I pull out the same card. I went, okay, whatever. 6 hours, super intense. We had a lot of fun. I painted the neural pathways on my sister's arms as part of the story because I could feel them so strongly. And don't ask me how I knew, I just could feel them. I go into the judges and I set up my little camera to record my presentation. I knew I needed to do this. I knew it was important to document. I didn't know why though. Now, I had 2 stories to this paint. One was the performance story, which was like to pull the judges in and the crowd, and I just made something off the top of my head. I didn't really concentrate on it at the time. The second story though, that was the one I cared about, and that was all about the neural pathways and my growth as an artist. Yes, I do have it, and yes, I am going to show you. I cannot wait to show you this, but I'm gonna need you to sit good, tight, good friend, because you will better understand my magic once you've seen my mud. After everyone gets judged, there's a show where all the amazing models catwalk and show off their paints. Then they announce the winners. They announced my name as the winner, first place. I was standing in between my husband and a friend, and they erupted with surprise and delight. But me, I walked up onto that stage really quite focused and with some understanding of how that makes perfect sense that I won that. I was of course spun out as I didn't know I had it in me, but that made sense because of whatever that feeling was going on inside of me for that 3 weeks. Now, I know you really want to see the paint, and I am going to show you, of course, but just give me a little bit more space and time yet, because the story isn't quite over. The sun has not yet set. I've waited 5 years for this new dawn, and I promise you it's worth it. Whatever was going on in my body was so profound that it changed me. The neural pathways I grew and that white hot feeling inside of me, it just beyond describable. I stood up on that stage with everyone else, all the winners and models, and it was in those moments that I went back to the old self. I certainly didn't understand it the way I do today, but I dropped back so hard into that old self. I tried to talk about the feeling on stage when accepting my award. Not the right crowd, not enough understanding, and truly only the beginning of the story. I walked away from that experience going, there must be someone in this world who is studying what is happening to people inside like that. I tried to talk about it with family and friends when I got back home, and everyone was like, whatever, you know, you're quite talented, that's what it is. You're amazing at face painting, etc. And then the people I told about it would talk about how I won, and they would talk about that when they were introducing me, and they'd talk about my talent, and I'd always play it down. Nobody wanted to talk about that energy that lit me up, and I couldn't explain it, so I stopped talking about it, but I didn't stop remembering it. First place came with a ticket to the World Body Painting Festival in Austria, not Australia. Long, long way from home for little old me, this little hack from the outback. I'd unknowingly dropped back into fear when I got up on that stage in Melbourne, and I carried that through with me. And when I hopped on that plane to go overseas, I immediately started crying, and it seemed to continue that way for almost the entirety of our 3-week trip. Yes, I went with Chook. We went into Venice for a couple of days before catching a train to Klagenfurt in Austria. And it was on this train ride that I turned to Chook and said, "You're not going to know me for the next 7 days." And little did I know just how much I wouldn't know myself. I freaked out, absolutely and without doubt. I clearly remember watching myself crying on the bed and in the hallway of our accommodation from the corner of the rooms I was in. It was an out-of-body experience for sure. I got it into my head about the level of competition and my paint that I'd planned, and it wasn't strong technically. I loved the storyline. It was really important to me, and I was way too attached to it for sure because it broke me that I couldn't match the paint to the story. It didn't even occur to me that I didn't have to paint if I didn't want to. Once my head gets going, there's no stopping the trajectory. Halfway through the competition, I just melted and went, I'm done, I can't do anymore. I presented it to the judges and it wasn't cohesive, you know, and I was really upset about it, but the level of freaking out was just too much. Didn't care about anything else. Anyhow, that happened and we continued on our journey back into Italy and France before we came home. I got home and I couldn't stop thinking about how much I'd flipped out. The level of fear that was in my body, again, you cannot have these types of experiences and walk away unchanged. I looked into fear, the body's response, and realised I'd been scared all my life. That was how I had approached my life, from a state of fear. I found Eckhart Tolle's work and it made sense, being in the present moment, becoming aware, and that's what I started to work on. Now we are going to enter my mud, so hold tight. Have a break anytime you need, and remember, I'm just a frame of reference, yeah? Just write down your feelings that come up and know that there is light at the end of this tunnel. Let's move forward to June 2019. I was on the precipice now. I was coming to the end of my days as a drinker. I was drinking an enormous amount and I couldn't stop. I wanted to quit. I'd done it before, so I knew I could do it again, but I couldn't see a path forward. It was June the 15th and I mixed wine and whiskey together in the same cup at the same time and downed that shit like it was the nectar of the gods. I do not recommend at all. I drank a lot of alcohol in a very short space of time and ended up passing out in bed. I woke up the next morning and I knew something was wrong. Very, very wrong. Again, it's difficult to explain those feelings that happen within that are so profound, but you know when you have a really bad hangover and you're vomiting all day and it's like, come out of it in the afternoon, it's like, God, I'm still alive. This was nothing on whatever was going on with me here. My husband came into me at one point and was like, I'll take the kids out and it won't be so loud, etc. And honestly, my friend, they could have been jumping all over me and it wouldn't make one bit of a difference to me. My insides were louder than anything I'd ever experienced. I should have been in hospital. I should have been dead. Something or someone saved me that day and I didn't know who it was until I met my future self. That's who saved me. So it was on that day, June the 16th, 2019, that I went, if you drink again, you will die. So make a choice, babe, what's it gonna be? And I haven't had a drink since. Yes, well done, me right, but you have to wait a minute because we have a bit more mud to examine. 3 months later, I was camping with the fam. My husband and I were having a chat and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It was raining heavily, everything was wet, and you know the drill with that. My husband is like, well, we can go and stay in a hotel or an Airbnb if you like. Dude, I say, I'm not talking about camping. I'm talking about our lives. Nothing's happening. We're stagnant. I want to elevate. That was a big feeling that was within me, and I must have you understand that. I could feel there was more to life, but I just didn't know the path, and I couldn't find it. We were renting a mouldy house at the time, and I couldn't get myself around it. I was working on being sober and trying to activate change, right? And it just felt like nothing was working. I was doing my best to be a better mum and a wife and giving every last piece of me to everyone around me. We weren't saving any money, so I opened up an account with a different bank and started secretly funneling money into it. My husband's parents lent us some money and I put that in there as well. Anyhow, fast forward Feb the 1st, 2020, I found out my husband had been lying to me about his pot addiction. Now, it's important that you understand here, I've smoked it with him a fair bit throughout our lives. One thing I know without a doubt, I love getting high. I love it. And that's going to be important for later, remember that. And that was something that I had to make peace with actually within my sober journey was, damn it, I'm just gonna have to get high on life, right? Now, the thing about this event was that I actually left him in 2010, 10 years previously with just 2 kids. I didn't want to live like that. And it wasn't the actual pot, right? Because that would be calling the kettle black. It was the lying and the achieving nothing that bothered me. The convincing me things would change and we would live how we had always dreamed. And he wrote me this letter saying, I'm so sorry, of course I choose you and the kids, I don't know what I've been doing, blah, blah, blah. So for 10 years I'd been with this dude who had been smoking pot at work all day, every day. And in that 10 years, I'd cleaned up twice from alcohol and kept trying to implement change and growth with us. And I'd had 2 more babies. Talk about gaslighting. Sometimes I would ask him, are you bent? And he would be like, no, of course not. Anyhow, listen, you must know what happened to me then. You know in Mrs. Doubtfire when Sally Fields is in the restaurant and she finds out Mrs. Doubtfire is Robin Williams? The whole time, it was like that for me. Everything crumbled around me and within me. That moment I found it out, it caused a severe bodily reaction inside of me. It was like a gong went off in my chest and it reverberated into my arms and body all the time. Every time I thought about it. And I couldn't stop thinking about it all day, every day. And it was so incredibly painful, like physically painful. If you're here with me now, I want you to understand that even though I was dealing with this betrayal from my husband, I knew with absolute crystal clear clarity and conviction that somehow, in some way, I had put myself there. I didn't have any understanding as to how I could have done this for 10 years, but I knew it was me. And I was not happy about it, my friends. I wanted to drink. I wanted to get so shit-faced and wasted, but there was no way I was going to let that fucker destroy me, right? I had quit drinking twice while he stayed high. And if you are or know of anyone who struggles with alcohol, drug addiction, you know some stuff about how hard that journey of recovery can be. And I'm not afraid to have these difficult conversations. So, March 2020, pandemic, right? And all I wanted to do was run from everything and everyone. I wanted to kick my husband out of the house, but it was mouldy, so I wanted to leave. I wanted to go into the outback and go walkabout, but I had 4 kids, no job, no career, no money. Man, it was so rough. I was in a Zoom call for business help with Kayleen Langford of Startup Creative, the business Kay. And she was talking about how you are where you are because you've put yourself there. And I knew she was right, of course, but it's a bitter pill to swallow, my friends. It's extremely bitter. And if there's one thing I knew about my situation was that I did not want to become bitter. I knew that would ruin me. Anyhow, she mentioned the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr Joe Dispenza, and I needed something. I needed to latch onto something. I was desperate for help, so I ordered it and read it. You know what I said to myself as I read it? I said, that's the guy. That's the guy who's studying what happened to me when I won my body paint. And it was so great to finally have the understanding. It was such a light bulb moment. So even though I was in this world of pain, I was like, right, this dude, he knows what he's on about. I know it works because I'd already had the profound experience. I had the explanation now. And I thought, if I can have a white hot fire inside of me that lights me up from the inside for 3 weeks for a body pain, well, I want that for my life. I want that for me because it's possible and I'm allowed. Plus, I'm sick of feeling like crap all the time, and we all know what that feels like, right? So I got to work, and you must know I got to work on this. I bought a few of his meditations and applied myself like a motherfucker. For the first few months, I'd get up at 4:30 every morning, do Botech 1 and Generating Abundance before picking up a friend, and we'd walk along the beach and watch the sunrises. In the beginning, the meditations were very uncomfortable, but I need you to hear me when I say it didn't take long for me to find comfort and solace within them. And that was where I found a lot of peace. My think box, though, that was exploding. My whole external world was blowing up around me. I was in so much physical and emotional pain from how I'd chosen to live my life up until then. And for the first time in my life, I was sitting still, not just in the meditations, but within my life, with my family and my friends and how I was showing up. I had effectively turned around and faced all the demons I'd created, stared them down and went, righto, what have you got for me? I observed myself, my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviours, and it was torturous. Again, all I wanted to do was run away, and everything around me was saying, sit down, stop, sort this out within you. I knew that if I left my husband and found someone else, I'd just be repeating the pattern because I'd done that for 10 years, right? And I didn't want to waste any more time. And that's a really big thing when you become sober. You realise you've wasted so much time drinking and you get really real about what you don't want to do and you don't want to waste any more time. My self-esteem was absolutely non-existent and I felt truly unworthy. I thought I was a woman of the world who made her own choices and was strong and independent. Turns out I was a doormat for everyone around me, and fuck, that hurt. I really understood the feelings behind wanting to leave an abusive relationship and not being able to. Because if you're lying about your addiction and you're not respecting or loving towards those you think you care about. My husband kept saying there's love there, but I didn't believe him at all. I couldn't see it. And some of the things he was saying were wild. It was like, you cannot believe what's coming out of your mouth, surely, mate. And some people will not understand this, and why didn't you just leave him? But I had to sort this out within before I could deal with the outer world. Like I was walking around like a ghost. Again, I was still looking deep within to find answers as to where I was lying to myself, the amount of respect I was showing myself, and what loving myself actually meant. How do I show up for me within this reality I've created? And how do I make my dreams come true instead of just magically hoping they'll turn up one day or listening to someone else and believing them? You see, reading the book and logically understanding it and saying to yourself, oh, this makes sense is one thing, but showing up for this work and doing the work and loving yourself enough to do this work that is required is incomparable. They are worlds apart, separate universes or dimensions, if you will. And you all know that. If anybody's doing the work, you know. In the book, chapter 6, The Three Brains, there's this little excerpt about how we can easily master the internal state of joy or compassion instead of suffering. And the way to do that is to think joy, feel joy, be joy, right? Well, I wanted that. I wanted my internal state to be one of joy so that whatever the external experience was, I was not reacting to it and feeling hard done by, depressed, anxious, scared, etc. I was feeling joy simply because I'm allowed to. It's our natural state, yeah? Those of you who are listening and struggle with anxiety, depression, fear, suicidal thoughts and behaviours, and those really low frequency energies know what I'm talking about. And I know you know because I talk about it with people. It's that constant state of survival that consistently drags you down and consumes you until you don't even understand who you are anymore. And this one's for you. I see you sitting front and centre. Hand on heart for a moment and deep breath in with love and compassion for yourself, yeah? And you know how he talks about clear intention, elevated emotion? Well, for 2 years, my think box was going off about all of this, trying to figure it out. First up, I was like, clear intention, what even is that? What do I want with my life? How do I want to live? I'd spent my childhood being taught to put myself last, and I grew up believing that and doing that. And now it was like, what do I want from my life? How do I want to live? And that took some time to figure that out, right? And then I started thinking about those elevated emotions of joy, gratitude, compassion, and kindness. And what are they? What do they feel like? And how do I feel them towards myself? Like, what? I'm allowed to be kind to me? And am I being kind towards me? Now, when it came down to looking back at my life, I was like, I don't know. I don't know what they all feel like. It took me a really, really long time to work it out. It was about 6 months into Dr. Joe's work, and I was out on an excursion for my horticulture course. I was wheeling some weeds up to a bonfire on this stunning property that overlooked the ocean, and the feeling of gratitude just enveloped me. And I didn't get it at first, but then I was like, oh, that's what that feeling is, right? So I had a frame of reference to work with. As for joy, well, I had had a lot of joy in my life with my kids, and I live near the beach and love being in nature, so I was able to understand that feeling a little easier, right? Compassion, kindness towards myself, what even is that concept? I had no idea, I tell you. I spent my entire life hating on myself, and I mean hating myself. When I was about 25, I sat on the front porch on New Year's Eve with my husband, and I turned to him absolutely wasted, surprise, surprise, and said, I hate myself. I said it with such venom that it caused a shock in my body. My husband was like, well, you probably want to go to do something about that, right? It's like, yeah. So how do I love myself? Again, what is love and what does it feel like? I knew I could change my neural pathways because of the body paint, and I knew it was going to be rough, but I had no choice. It was that or death for me. And when I say I got to work, I can only truly appreciate what I did and looking back now where I'm standing. For 2 years, I felt like I was walking on this tightrope. I was terrible at walking on it. One side was the letting go and the surrendering, and on the other side was giving up. I felt like I kept falling into the give up side. I didn't know how to surrender to this when there was such an incredible amount of pain in my body, and I could not see a path forward with anything. Dr. Joe talks about the river of change, and I felt like I was drowning the entire time. I'd come up for air and there was just nothing to inhale. I've got 4 kids, and I couldn't stop thinking about how to walk this path with grace and integrity and peace for them. And it was in the pandemic era, so lockdown, stay at home, etc. And I could barely concentrate on anything that was outside of my immediate self and home. I was living with my husband, but he was a stranger to me, and every time I looked at him, the gong would go off inside of me and reverberate through my being. The loop that my mind was stuck in was excruciating. I was aware of it and living within the awareness for such a long time before it changed. The mold was making me crazy, I swear. My second son was sneaking out at night, unbeknownst to us, until the police showed up. I mean, he was 12. My husband and his family thought I was going to run off with the money that I'd been saving for us. And that was an interesting time because I'd been feeling this weird feeling about the money for a while and I couldn't explain it. And then this came up and that knowledge made the feeling make sense, yeah? So I paid back what we owed them and cut all ties with his family. And it was so, so sad for me. I'd been with my husband since I was 19, so they were my family, and I had to grieve this really large loss in my life. I had to really look at what others thought of me and what I knew to be true for myself. The gaslighting and judgment that I had allowed others to dominate over me. I mean, you know it. I held out hope for a while that my husband would cop onto his bullshit and sort this out, but I had to grieve that also. I also had a couple of interactions with people that were really uncomfortable. I lost that friend I was walking with early in the mornings. One thing that I had programmed myself to do over my lifetime was to engage with the drama, the yelling, the fights, the arguments, right? Becoming present and aware in those moments was really difficult. My body would jump at loud noises, at any noises. Raised voices would kick me back into the old self. And sometimes I'd find myself watching people yell at each other down the street, and I'd kick myself out of it and walk away, right away. Not my circus, not my monkeys, and not my neural pathway I want. That caused me to think about, am I the type of person that helps others? And I had to question that. And I am, because of some experiences I had that I went, okay, actually, I would jump out and help people if there's trouble. And I also had to think about, this was an interesting one, I had to think about whether I was fun or not. Because you know how there's people who are like really good at having spontaneous fun, and I was like, I shouldn't have to think about this, but I ended up thinking about it, and I realised that I actually am a lot of fun, so that was really nice for me. Meanwhile though, my circus inside of me was still exploding with pain. I cried that river before I crossed it. The grief I sat with was insurmountable. I grieved 2 entire lifetimes, the one I'd given myself and the one I had always dreamt of. And the grief of them would just shuttle back and forth inside of me on the daily. There were days I would walk along this particular beach and I would cry and scream and rage about this pain. I kept asking and asking and asking, when is this going to stop hurting? Like, when am I going to be done here? 2 years, friends, it's a long time to hold space for all of that. About 18 months in, one day I woke up crying and asked myself, we're done here. Is this it? Because I'm done. And as soon as that happened, all of this stuff fell away and I was in such relief. I remembered how I had almost died from alcohol poisoning and how I drank for so many years when I didn't want to drink. And I know that space really, really well. I could never find the way out and would constantly hang on to this ideal future self version of how I wanted to live and who I wanted to be. And I was now this person that I had longed to become. There was an amazing amount of gratitude that flowed into my body. And I had to write down everything into a book of all the steps I had taken to show up for myself to get here. And then I made it into this online course about how I quit drinking and the steps I took, etc. And I also remembered that I'd taken some video footage of me just before I quit drinking and I'd made it into a little short, and here it is here. Hard to be a drunk. I love being drunk all the time, but it hurts a lot. But I drink to not feel, so I don't want to stop. But I hate the hangovers. Oh, I hate the hangovers. Oh, I can't even see the path to get off it again. I want to drink until the end of time. There's just no purpose there. This is the next day and I feel like vomiting. I want more for my life. I want more than this. And I know I can do it. This hangover's hurting. No sympathy. I don't give myself any of that shit, but ooh, I want something different for myself now. And I love wine, but I feel like I'm about to vomit it up. So I choose life. I choose it for me, and I choose it for my family because I love them and I want to live. I don't want to die. And I feel like I'm just killing myself actually. I don't know how to stop though. That's it. I don't know how to stop. So friend, I did it. I found the path. I almost killed myself, but I I'm 2 years sober now, and I can tell you I've got one more. You know how Dr. Joe talks about becoming so familiar with your old self that you don't want to be it anymore, right? And I have to share this with you. This work is radical responsibility of self. Becoming so familiar with the old self meant I had to become so honest with myself. I had to become accountable and responsible for everything that had happened in my life, to myself, and the way I had treated others. I had to consciously walk through each and every low frequency feeling until I was aware and strong enough to go, no bitch, we're not doing this anymore, right? And to keep going because they kept coming. Those feelings, the anger, the shame, the regret, the guilt, the grief, there were days I thought that grief would kill me. I was walking around like a ghost, feeling all of these feelings for almost 2 years, and not being able to make sense of my life and my relationship with my husband, and the physical shock that kept running through me was insane. I was becoming so incredibly familiar with all of those feelings because they just kept coming and coming and coming, and it was absolutely ferocious. When you're a teenager and you're self-harming and you want to die and your brain and body is packed to the brim with pain and despair and you don't know what the fuck is going on, it's a scary place. And when those exact feelings come back up when you're an adult, it's quite shocking. Like, surely this was relegated to the past. I love watching all of the transformation stories on Dr. Joe's YouTube channel, and I would watch Zachary's story and know, yes, it is possible. I could see that because I was older, it would be more difficult as I'd laid down more of those fear neural pathways for a longer time, and they were really stuck in there, you know. I could feel them. I was one fucking hard nut to crack, I tell ya. You know what kept me going? Botec 1. Love yourself enough to do this. That has become my mantra over the past 3 years. Love yourself enough to do the work. Do the fucking work. Throughout all of this, I'd managed to buy a block of land and it was like a little slice of paradise for me. I owned it outright, and I would walk onto that land, I'd shut the gate, and the outside world would fuck right off. And it was very, very peaceful. In August of 2021, I packed everyone up, husband and all, and we all moved up to the block and camped there. There were no rentals around, and I just couldn't handle the mold. It was making me mental, I swear. The real estate was fucked, the landlord was fucked, it was all fucked. But I refused to be a victim with that. During this time, I would drive the kids 1 hour back and forth each day to school, and my kids are incredible and resilient. They have no idea. They'd get up and get going, and sometimes the car would erupt with fighting and arguing. And I would use this time to work on my fear response within my body, especially in my stomach. I would have a thought, any thought, and my stomach would clench and tighten. I could feel the release of chemicals in my body, and I'd sit there and work on actively calming my nervous system all the time. I had this abundant healing playlist that I'd created, and I put it on all the time. The kids were so sick of it, and sometimes I was really sick of it, but I'd just tell myself to shut up. I need to get this in my system. So we're all camping up at the block for 5 weeks in winter nonetheless, and a family member says he's bought another house. It's nice and warm and we could rent it out. Well, I moved in there, just me and the kids, for a little bit. I needed a break from my husband, but I had no job or anything, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on, and I tried to come back to the world because God only knows where I had been. I came back to reality with vaccinate against COVID or you can't work. I live in Victoria, which is the police state of Australia. Now, I do not care for an argument about any of this. I guarantee you if anyone starts to converse with me about this, I've taught myself to walk away. I'm only here as a frame of reference for healing and change within, right? I knew I didn't need it, and I felt forced into doing it. I felt trapped. There was a lot more going on and in amongst all of this, but I'm not here to discuss that. I walked into that appointment and went, no, I'm not going to be scared of this. I'm going to choose love. Well, I had a reaction to it. And it was incredible, really. My heart went funny. But the biggest thing that happened to me was how it set every nerve in my body on edge. And when we talk about incoherence, well, that was me. It felt like I had been injected with the fear of the entire population of the world. And that was a really fascinating feeling. I ended up in hospital with a heart monitor on and for suicide watch. My frontal lobe completely shut off. It simply would not work. I couldn't make any decisions about anything, least of all looking after my kids. It was wildly huge for me. My husband came and visited me in hospital and he's asking me questions about the kids, and there was nothing in my brain. It was empty. It was really weird. I saw a psychiatrist. I was like, dude, what's up? What's going on here? This is a bit extreme, isn't it? And he suggested I may have borderline personality disorder, and I looked it up. I looked it up and I went, well, maybe in the past I had this, but I'm certainly not going to define myself with this, and I do not subscribe to that. You see, you could say I had ADHD, I had clinical depression, postpartum depression, severe anxiety. There's many labels you could try and put on me, but I seem to actively fight against them when you do, and I'm here for the human experience. Quietly to myself as I sat in that hospital bed, I was slightly extremely pissed with Dr. Joe's work. I'm like, I've been doing this work for almost 2 years and this is what I get. Like, what the actual fuck? This shouldn't be happening to me. But lose your mind to create a new one, right? And please don't think you'll end up in hospital. This was just my experience. I'm only a frame of reference, and that's a guaranteed limited belief. I spent 4 days in hospital and then I stayed with my parents for 2 weeks. I couldn't look after my children. My husband moved back in with us. I would wake up every morning for weeks from night terrors. My body would be shaking. I'd be dripping with sweat. It was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. I mean, I thought I knew what anxiety was, but this was severe, intense, extreme anxiety. The docs were trying to put me on medication, antidepressants, and I had spent my teens refusing them. I don't subscribe to them. They say as a side effect, but really a cause, right, is suicidal ideation. And I'd had enough of that shite. Plus, I just don't do regular medication. They did give me some brilliant drugs for sleep though, and I took them. They were good. And even though I was waking up with night terrors in the morning, I'd pass out at night. And for the first time in a really, really, really long time, probably since I had kids, I was getting actual proper rest sleep. I lost 11 kilos in a matter of days. No joke. I lost all of this weight. It just disappeared and I couldn't eat anything. I'd nibble an apple during the day maybe and a mouthful of dinner, but I just couldn't eat. I was shaking so much all the time. By night time I would have calmed down, but it would just start all over again the next day, and it took quite a few weeks for this to subside. I changed from doing meditations in the morning to in the evening. So I went back into my think box over the next few weeks with this stuff, and I was like, what's going on here? Because it felt very much like I'd been triggered back to when I was around 11, and that's when the anxiety had started, and that's when the no eating had started, and the self-harm. The depression and suicidal ideation came after all of that. When I was a teenager, I was scared to eat. I had this phobia of vomiting and I would never eat. I know that whatever went down when I was around 11 was how my body was behaving at 39. Do you see? The experience could be anything, but it's the feeling that's inside of you that you need to work out and get sorted. The emotion that's stuck deep within. I read The Body Keeps the Score. It felt really good to have some more understanding of what was going on, and I was able to see that that experience had provided me with an opportunity to deepen my change and healing. Does that make sense? See, I always ask myself, what lesson am I learning here with anything I go through, good or bad? Even if I don't get an answer or the one I'm looking for, it's just a really great practice. So I continued with my meditations, and I was in my think box going, did I just cause 2 years of grief for my family? Because if it's true, when Dr. Joe says we create our reality, I just created this entire reaction that was stuck inside of me since I was little, and made me think, what else am I holding on to here, because I finally understood that I had to get real with the work, like really real. and choose joy and keep choosing it again and again and again and again, even when my body was shaking like a scared little leaf. I was like, no, bitch, we're not doing this anymore. And it kept coming up, the anxiety, and I realised that I'd self-medicated with alcohol to numb myself and cover the anxiety that raged within me. It was here where I had to make a choice. I asked myself, what if this work takes 10 years? Are you going to keep going? How long are you going to keep doing this? Are we in or are we out? And I really did have to meditate on that thought, and I decided that I would continue no matter how long it took. As a little but interesting aside, the house we moved into started showing signs of mold, and I very nearly lost my shit again, I can tell you. And I saw this move as quite interesting. It was clear I'd just been trying to move matter because the house had a broken kitchen tap, it had ants and the mold, which were exactly like the house I'd moved us out of. Obviously still trying to move matter, and you need to keep working on not being affected by your external world, the environment, right? Yeah. So I sat. Again, I sat. I sat with peace and joy and love and compassion and kept choosing joy for myself over and over again with everything I thought, felt or acted. I kept up with the conscious joy practice every day, and I kept meditating. And just a word here about meditating. I was mostly not sitting up for them. I was in bed falling asleep to them. Exactly what he says, don't do. I'm telling you though, my friends, my low frequency state over the past 1,000 years just like had me by the jugular, I was really, really low. I always felt like I wasn't 100% showing up if I was laying down and Dr. Joe would say sit up. In my mind, I would pretend to sit up sometimes. What's that I hear you say, Dr. Joe? There's no such thing as... That's right, there's no such thing as bad meditation. So even though I knew I might not be hitting the spot, I also knew that it would go into my subconscious because I was falling asleep to them and waking up amongst them. Some mornings I'd wake up and meditate, but not as often as I had in the beginning. During this time, I was working on healing the memory of waking up hungover and feeling like shit, and that was another type of torture there. My husband queried me about something within my practice. I can't remember what he said, but I do know I laughed and said, don't you understand? It only matters to me how I feel within. Nobody else is feeling what's going on inside of me. It's just me. And I have to do whatever it takes to feel good about being here and having these experiences. And it was in this time that I decided that if I'm here on this earth, on this plane, having these experiences, whatever they are and however they show up, that I am going to choose joy for myself and continue to do so. Question for you out there, friends. How sick and tired are you of your own bullshit? Like seriously, have a think about it. Take that question away and think about it for a bit. You don't need to tell me about it. How sick are you of yourself? I was so fucking sick of my own bullshit, I tell you. I see people online asking questions about which meditation to use and what other people are doing. And I'm gonna tell you, if you are truly sick of your own bullshit and want to create your own life and walk forward with joy, just choose any meditation of Dr. Joe's and start. Stop waiting for someone else's answer. In the words of Kayleen Langford, just start. Open books, ask questions of yourself, explore what feels right and good for you. Dive deep into all of the knowledge that exists and that we have access to, and ask yourself what you believe, what's true for you. How do you want to show up for yourself? What thoughts do you want to have? What do you want to feel? And what does love feel like within your body? Start doing that and see what happens. It was also around this time that I gave up manifesting anything, because I was always trying from a state of lack. I had read Becoming Supernatural and tried the letter in the 2 squiggly lines. The things I had tried to manifest, I tell you, and the way I went about it too. Obviously the warm, clean house, I just had to let it all go. Even though it is my greatest desire to live in a warm and clean, healthy environment, I just had to stop. And again, get really real about this work. Clear intention, feel joy for my life, for me, for my existence. So my clear intention was actually the elevated emotion. And this is one thing about suicidal thoughts, feelings and behaviours that I knew to be true for myself, is I felt like I wasn't allowed to exist here on this earth. Like, I have never felt like I belong here. And it wasn't that I wanted to kill myself so much as not be here, yeah? August of 2022, I went up to Lismore, New South Wales to help a friend move back into her home, which had been flooded in February. The floods were truly devastating. My friend had bought her first home 2 weeks before the floods in an area that wasn't expected to flood, and her house was on stilts and the water came up 3/4 of the way on the second story. It was crazy. I went there and the despair that lived in the air of that town was palpable. The entire town was a war zone months after the event, and I believe that you can only understand that if you see it and experience it. So there was a lot of grief that I picked up on. It was amazing to be there with my friend though, and to laugh and cry and share space with her. I would never have not gone, but it was definitely sad. There was a lot of grief. One day I went walking through the botanic gardens there. They have this amazing hoop pine forest, and they had a labyrinth in amongst it. If you ever get an opportunity to walk one, I highly recommend it. I made it to the middle and there was a tree, and I hugged that tree and the thought came to me, where do I belong? And the thought came in, you belong to this earth. Because I had lived with this feeling of disconnect and lack for such an incredibly long time. Like, why don't I have a house? Where's my home? Why do I want to kill myself? I'd never felt like I was allowed a home perhaps, and this was just such a beautifully peaceful feeling of, it didn't matter that I didn't have a home because I was home on this earth and I belong here. And that was another feeling of relief within. We get ourselves to around October 2022, and there was this talk of another body paint comp, this time in Queensland, same week in March 2023, and I was like, you know what, I might just compete again. The organiser asked everyone what the theme should be. I meditated on it for a couple of minutes and said rebirth. Perfect, right? After all of COVID, like, face painting was the first thing to go and it was one of the last things to come back. The organiser loved it and said, yep, the theme is rebirth. So I booked some tickets for my family and myself, and I still hadn't decided whether I was going to compete. But I thought at least we have a holiday, good times. And then this email comes in, right? Dr Joe Dispenza was coming to Australia for a week-long advanced retreat. Like, what the actual fuck, my friends? And of course, it was the same week as the body paint. Well, I thought, I have to go to this. I have to try and get a ticket. Now, I didn't know much about getting a ticket at all. I just saw it was going to be at 10 a.m. on this day and it was going to be $4,000 fucking dollars, right? And I was face painting again, and I'd been putting money away for a rainy day, right? And I was $250 short. And on the day, I rang my husband and I said, do you have $250 so I can try and get a ticket? He's like, yeah, but it's only cash and I'll have to come home, etc. I was like, well, I suppose I could try it later at around 2 p.m. There might still be a ticket, but can it be before 10 a.m? Yes, thank you, husband, for that. I drove down the street to deposit the money. And as I'm driving and walking to the bank, I was so calm because I knew that if I didn't get a ticket in this now, I would get a ticket in another now. I walked into my bank to deposit the money at 9:56, walked out of the bank, sat on a seat, filled in the rego form, and bingo, I was in, baby. I got a golden ticket. I had no idea, honestly. Now that's all very exciting, right? And you know what feeling immediately came over me as soon as I got the ticket? What the fuck have I just done? How could I have spent all of that money on me? That's so selfish and irresponsible. You have 4 kids, it's 2 days before Christmas, rah, 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 fucking rah, right? So I sat with it and I was like, again, no, bitch, we're not doing that anymore. I refuse to live by lack. I simply refuse it. Even if my body wants to throw me back there, I'm not doing it anymore. We are so close, my friends, and I appreciate you staying with me for a little bit more. Right, so it's the end of Jan 2023 and I'm off on another retreat. This has been booked a long time previously. It was a hand panned retreat. 3 nights, a couple of hours away from where I live. Before I left, my body worked me up into such a state of anxiety, and I was walking around going, what the fuck is going on? Like, surely we're done with this damn anxiety, come on. Anyhow, I ended up having a really beautiful time, met some amazing beings, but I walked away going, all right, so I've worked on the gut, 2 and 3, for calming the nervous system. Where else do I store it in my body? And I knew the answer, it was my neck and shoulders, number 5. 2 weeks later, I got an injury from Pilates that turned into a pinched nerve in my neck. I was in excruciating pain, couldn't move, barely look after the kids, etc., etc. Same story, different experience. I had to go away for a basketball tournament with my son, and the pain kicked up several notches. I rang my husband in tears about it, freaking out, and I get off the phone and think, hey, hold up. There has to be joy here in this moment, and I need to find it. And I thought about the pain I had experienced from my husband's betrayal. Is this pain as bad as that? No, I don't think so, but because it was in the present moment, it felt excruciating, yeah? So I breathed some joy right into that shoulder. I worked on becoming so present that I couldn't feel the pain and felt joy. And it was for such a split second, but I managed to do it. I ended up having an MRI on my neck. Now, friends, I am claustrophobic, majorly. Anxiety kicks off and I'm already hyperventilating. And again, I was like, no, bitch, we're not doing that anymore, right? So I go along to the appointment with my little koala bear eye mask and I'm like, I can do this, I know it. And the MRI machine is really, really, really tiny, in case you didn't know. And I lay down on the machine and he presses a button, I go back, and I don't need an eye mask, I'll be fine. Immediately, no. Immediately, no. I freaked out. He backed me out, I burst into tears. No, bitch, we're not doing this anymore, right? I can calm myself and talk through this, I'll be fine. So I put on my mask, he puts on some music, and I spent 20 minutes in that machine breathing my way through it. Awesome. So we're coming up quite quickly to Dr. Joe's retreat, 2 weeks to go, and I thought I better start meditating every day instead of 2 to 4 times a week, really wanting to show up for myself, right? And I was going for walks with my dog and living in the present and enjoying myself, like, this is life and I'm here for it. It was a real stop and smell the roses couple of weeks. I was really interested in seeing what the retreat was all about. I knew I had done the work, you know. I had done the fucking work and I was super thrilled. I really felt like I'd cracked it, you know. I was walking around with joy in my heart simply for living. And I was sinking into this glorious version of myself that was like more and more authentic. And one of the biggest feelings I had going on, which I think is not talked about enough, is acceptance. I looked it up. It means taking or receiving whatever is offered. I was accepting of my past. I was accepting of me right in that moment, going, whatever comes for me, I accept and own it as mine, you know. It's very, very freeing. And it was also a huge feeling of relief. And I looked up that word. I looked it up, Dr. Joe, and it's from the old Latin word relevare, to raise up, lighten. So gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. It makes sense that we truly need to feel acceptance so we can be open to receiving. I also want to quickly add in that it wasn't all hard times within that 3 to 5 years. I'd been teaching myself many different disciplines of art, including dyeing and felting wool, pyrography, watercolour, henna, levelling up my face painting. I studied a Cert 3 in horticulture also. I definitely noticed changes within my brain and the way I saw the world, including seeing a whole new colour palette within the world. I could switch my eyes from 2D to 3D and to seeing all the shades of each colour within the world around me. I could pull characters out of the woodwork, so to speak, sort of like a magic eye puzzle. My eyes were actually fizzing at certain colours and plants and the life around me. I know that sounds weird, but I think it was the dopamine hitting my brain, and whenever I see something new or unusual or simply incredible, it was like, that's really cool, and my eyes would fizz. I could hear the sunrise. I know that's a strange one, but right before the first light of day, there's an orange and blue colour to the horizon, and I could hear the noise of it. It sounds like what we think space is, this type of frequency for sure, And then when the sun comes up, I could hear angels singing. You know, again, we're just rolling with this, right? Okay. The day before the retreat, I told my tribe I'd be reporting back about the event and to see whether it was worth the $4,000 and what I'd get out of it. It was important for me to go into the retreat observing Dr. Joe too. Some people talk about him like he's their idol or their biggest fan, but I'm sure that's not what he's on about. He's just showing you the path, you know. And plus, I'd done all of that idolizing in the face paint world and I knew exactly where that had got me. So I really went to the retreat with the belief I was ready, I was open, ready to receive, and what is this dude going to be on about? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you on the edge of your seat? Because this shit is about to get so real. And if you're still here, I'm so thrilled because we're going places, baby. Let's just put our hands on our hearts and take a deep breath and be in this moment. I'm going to show you the seating plan again and let you know you can change your seat at any time. The choice is yours. Be confident in your choice though, okay? You need to sit in your seat and get super comfy because it's time for you to buckle the fuck up. I wake up on day one and off I go on my little bike, riding from the Airbnb to register on the Monday. I'm vibing with life. It's Queensland, it's warm, I don't have kids to look after. I'm going to get fed breakfast and lunch for a whole week. I mean, the white selenite that my husband said to take popped up in my thoughts. Cool, whatever. Back to the work I've done, enjoying the moment. I'm so ready to meditate for a week. I'm gonna finally go on my little walkabout. Just walkabout in my mind, yeah? Let's go. So I sign in and the volunteer says, pick a colour, red, yellow, black or white. White it is. Shout out to the whites. Also big shout out to all the volunteers who put up with me in any way and helped me out. You guys were brill. I go and sit down at the resort waiting for it to start and I meet Wattlebird and Kookaburra. And we have a great chat and we're all newbies, so that's exciting. Then I had to sign up for the shit study. Shout out to my shit buddy Cormorant. It measures the effect of meditation on the gut microbiome and its relationship with anxiety. So I had to give them a little bit of my shit, but I am so curious about all of this and I know I'm not the only one. I actually emailed Encephalon before the retreat and asked if they could measure my brain at the retreat and if I could get up on stage and tell my story because I knew some cool shit was going to go down. I just had a feeling. I didn't know. I did not fucking know, but I sure as shit do now. So we go in and we sit down waiting for Dr. Joe to come on stage and I'm sitting next to Sulphur-Crested Cockatoo and we share stories and connect. I'm still sitting there going, what is this all about? What have you got for me, Dr. Joe? And I'm telling you, as soon as he came out on that stage and opened his mouth, I knew I was where I was meant to be. I knew the work that I had done was right. It was difficult and fucked up most of the time, but it was the right path. The formula I had to take, if you will. So he talked and then we did a meditation. Sulphur-Crested Cockatoo was like, just letting you know, I have energy move through me. I shake a bit. In my head, I'm like, no idea what he's going on about, but I say, cool. And in the meditations, there were a few people making noises and shouting or moaning or whatnot. And as someone who has been brought up in a very strict Catholic environment where I repressed my emotions and desires, I was a little bit uncomfy. But I was also like, no bitch, we're not doing this anymore. I was very present and very aware that I was here and I was open to receive whatever the universe had for me. I was here for it. So the next day, day 2, Dr. Joe says, do you want to see what the breath looks like? Let's get some people up on stage. And I'm watching them and it's a no way for me. Shout out to the 2 emus I sat next to for sharing space with me. And again, strict Catholic upbringing, it's a they are possessed thing. Holy, what have I got myself into here? I saw Greg's testimonial on YouTube a month ago and I was laughing along with him because I was exactly the same. These guys are being paid, they work for him, so they've got this thing going down. Fear definitely came up inside of me again. And again, no bitch, we're not doing this anymore. You know, I've done so much work with becoming conscious of the fear program within me. I actively reject moving forward in my life with fear, with every fibre of my being. Of course, the feeling comes up now and then. It's a natural feeling, but I am very conscious of it, and I just tell it this all the time now. No joke. I was like, well, if this is what I'm here to do, this breath, I'm going all in with this. I was still struggling with the notion of going all in because I'd been doing it for 3 years and didn't know what it really meant. Now, I'd been meditating with the breath a little before coming, but I didn't really understand the process or what I was meant to be doing or feeling. I would try to do it before a meditation. I bought the Inspire tracks and I listened to them once, but I honestly just put all of that to the side and would just focus on the actual meditations. I had also had no previous feeling of energy moving through the body, and I felt like I had dropped into the void a couple of times but freaked out and came out of it pretty quickly. I made it my mission to find one of the white hats to have a chat about what they were feeling when they were up on stage. And if you also remember, I said I was lying down a lot and falling asleep to them, which Dr. Joe says is not the way at all. But again, energy so incredibly low. I truly want you to understand that it was the lowest of the low. I'd really programmed those low frequencies into my very existence. However, I couldn't stop thinking about the last 3 years of absolute effort and energy I had used to get to a place of peace within. It was a phenomenal amount of energy, and I knew that. And if you remember, I knew I said when I'd read the book, I was in like spin because of the body paint. I also knew Dr. Joe was the goods, right? So I'm going all in here, and if he says sit on the edge of your seat, I'm gonna sit on the edge of my seat. Shout out to Galar and Platypus for sharing space with me on day 3. Galar is so inspiring. She danced her way through that whole retreat and it was just wonderful to witness. We're just about to do the last meditation of the day. I finally managed to chat with the white hat who'd been up on stage doing the breath. And I had to know, I had to ask, does it hurt? Because I was scared, and I had to know, can you control it? Because I have to know that I can be in control, you know, the fear program. Now, Dr. Joe would lecture before a meditation and would really pump me up for it, right? He's like, sit on the edge of your seat and just get lost in the act. So I was like, let's go. I'm here, I'm doing it, you know, you with me? I didn't know it at the time, but I think it was the first track on Inspire. And you have to know, this is my type of music. I've been vibing to this genre for over 20 years. Liquid Bloom and Parangwai feature on my energy dance playlist that I've been using for somatic healing for the past 3 years. And one thing I was very conscious of was what happens if I start going off and yelling and screaming and crying and throwing myself around. I was worried that I'd be one of those that fake it. Dr. Joe says he can spot them a mile off, so I was a bit in my head about all that. And I also didn't want to bother anyone who was next to me, right? Right. I've been waiting a while to tell you this. So I'm in the meditation, edge of seat, doing the breath, following along and getting lost in it. And I start to feel this little twitch in my left thigh. It's not in one place, it's bouncing around my thigh, and it's very obviously twitching with the music's melody. In my head, I'm like, what's up here? Am I faking this? Am I doing this on purpose? Like, what's happening? I was trying not to overthink it. I'm like, no, let's get lost in the act, right? The music is peaking and Dr. Joe is going off with his voice, and I start to relax more and more into the feeling. Then the twitching starts on my right thigh as well, and it's getting stronger. Like I said, I was worried I wouldn't be able to control it, so I just sort of chill with it and then let it come back. Like I knew it was there, but I didn't need to connect with it. If my mind wandered and I wanted to feel it, I'd just focus on my heart. So it wasn't hurting and I was safe, so I just sat with it. My legs start to vibrate, right? My hands on top of my thighs start joining in, and there was this golden hot vibration in my right thigh and hand that really buzzed for a bit. Dr. Joe then asked us to draw the experience into our heart. And when that happened, the energy in my body went from being all over the place to very coherent and in time with the beat of the music. The energy in my thighs was drawing up into my body. It was most definitely in time with the beat. And the only way I can describe it is like this. You know when you're at the top of your climax and you start pulsing? It was like that, but in the top of my thighs. So naturally, it felt great. Again, strict Catholic upbringing, repression, no idea my body could feel this. Dr. Joe says it's like an arousal, but I had no idea, none. So I come out of the meditation and I'm really spacey. I didn't want to talk to anyone, just sort of be with myself because it felt so great and process whatever was going on. Shout out to all the birds who rode at night back to our Airbnbs together, especially Eagle, who I was staying with. I went home and I twitched a bit throughout the night and I was like, ooh, what's up with this, eh? Day 4 began with a walking meditation at 6 a.m. and I went into that meditation with the curious thought, I wonder if I can do that again. I wonder if I can connect to that energy, that feeling, because it felt so good and so beautiful. I could still feel it, and so I knew it was there. When I got to the beach, I put my headphones on and those vibrations started up immediately. I know, Dr. Joe says you have a lot of energy in one, but I had no idea just how much energy. The energy that gathered in number 1 was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Before in my meditations, Dr. Joe would say, focus your attention on your perineum and all around it, right? And I'd had a 4th degree tear when I'd had my first baby. So I was always feeling a bit lacking with that. And even though surgery was excellent and my body healed and I went on to have 3 more babies, the thought was there. You with me? Okay. So I'm standing on the beach and 1 is all in my thighs and butt. My legs are pulsing in time with the music and 1 is like vibrating. And I'm there with my eyes closed. I'm like, my God, this feels so good. It feels so good. I didn't really want to come out of it. Again, as a frame of reference, that's all I am. You know when you reach the top of your climax just before you peak? It was like that. There was no ending and no beginning though. It was just vibrating, like all in my legs and butt. And my body's doing it all on its own, friends. Like, what's up with that? Then Dr. Joe says start walking, and we've moved up to 4 by this stage, I think, and I was walking with my eyes open and I've got my hand on my heart and I'm beating in time with the music, and 4 lights the fuck up. My hand starts pumping it out and it was like I was pulling the energy out of my body. Again, my body is vibrating with the music and I'm pure joy. I'm stomping on that beach, you know, it was brilliant. I was thrilled that I could connect with the energy, and it was much more powerful than the night before. After breakfast, we go into the ballroom and the music's on and everyone's like, yeah, woo, great, let's dance. And someone comes up to me and says, oh my God, your photo, you're beautiful, it's Joy. So I realized that there's photos up on the screen from that morning down on the beach, and I'm standing there and it comes up and I'm like, cool, processing it. And then someone else comes up to me, that photo, look at you, you're incredible, you're Joy. And then someone else comes up to me and they say similar stuff. And I shit you not, I had about 20 people come up to me over the course of 2 days and mention that photo. Oh, that photo of you in the dress. One person even said, that famous photo of you. It really spun me out because I couldn't see anything in the photo. You know, when you're looking at photos of yourself. But I knew that they were connecting to the energy I was generating, and I'd walked on that beach and 1 had vibrated and 4 had come out of my body. So it made perfect sense. It was pretty cool. So from then on, each meditation I did, I walked into it with the thought, what have you got for me? My theme for 2023 was me to the power of 3, but it's obviously me to infinity now, right? Okay, day 5, I continued to vibe with the energy and it kept coming in at random times. It felt like a jolt into my heart and then my head would snap back. I'd explore connecting to the energy within the meditations and listen to Dr. Joe in the lectures, chat with a few people and eat. Oh my goodness, I was so grateful to be fed. When you don't have to cook for anyone and someone actually feeds you, that's a blessing. And for a whole week. Lush as, right? There was another walking meditation on the beach, and it was connecting brain and heart two as one. And I wanted to say I connect to the energy again, but actually it was just there all the time. And when I went into the meditations was where I was able to let go of everything and allow it. The energy within me is massive in this meditation. My head is snapping back. And when I feel the two sides of my brain and connect them, there's all this green electricity inside of there, and they come together. And I knew in that moment, in that meditation, that my brain had changed. Drinking alcohol every day for such a long time had destroyed my brain, and I knew it. And I had spent a lot of my adult life, especially the last 3 years, in such a state of brain fatigue. I knew I had changed it, healed, whatever you call it. So that day there was a lot of talk about the pineal gland and the meditation we were going to do. The energy that was going through my body was happening all the time. It felt like a punch right into the back of my heart, and then my neck would snap back like this, and I'd have these delicious braingasms, I suppose. And so whilst the meditations were intense, I was still doing it all of the time. At breakfast, lunch, when I was walking, talking, even sitting on the toilet. I was a little concerned about it because I was scared I would lose control. I've still got that, I've got to hold on to that stuff. I had spent my life drinking so much alcohol and smoking pot, but apart from doing a tiny bit of acid, I hadn't done any other types of substances because I was scared I'd lose control. I really wanted to go into that meditation without that feeling because the energy I was experiencing was obviously so different. And again, it just felt really, really, really good. And I wanted to be free and open to receive it all. Yeah? I met Black Cockatoo, who said, "You need to talk to Grace. She's the business." So I go and talk to her, and she was brilliant. What does Dr. Joe say when energy reaches the heart? It goes straight up into the brain. And I'm like, but it's a lot of energy. And she's like, I know. Shout out to Grace. You've been a great help. Thank you. We went into the kaleidoscope meditation, and the energy was just really pinging in my body. It would come in that back of my heart and it would shoot straight up the top of my head. It was like the energy was knocking on the door, Day 6 rolls around and it starts at 4 a.m, the pineal gland meditation. I walked into the ballroom looking for a seat. I'd been trying to sit with different people and open up my experiences. I hadn't really met many other people other than those I sat with because outside of the ballroom, I was just processing all of the energy and eating. Black Cockatoo comes up to me and softly guided me to where her emu and wombat were. I was like, "Do you have a seat for me?" She nods, and I was just flooded with gratitude. I've spent 3 years, did I mention that? 3 years doing this work. I knew of no one else who had been doing this work around me. If someone talked to me about their struggles with life, I would share Dr. Joe's work and my body paint with them, but no one I knew was actively doing the work. So this was a really lovely moment for me, I was like, I know people, friends even, who do the work. The words I use now will not do justice to what I felt during this meditation. I was really looking forward to doing it. I had trained my body to meditate at 4:35, so I was excited. I sat on the edge of that seat and my whole entire being lit the fuck up. I kid you not. I started as soon as the meditation began, and it continued the whole time. The whole time? The whole time. Dr. Joe took us through the energy centers and 1, 2 and 3 and so on, and my body could not stop. I felt each center. The energy was rushing up from 1 straight into 4, bam, right up into my head, 6. My head was flicking back. I was working very hard on staying present with each center as we went up, but my body was just up at 6, having a good time. My entire body was feeling the energy, and the waves were coming one after the other with no pause or break. and most importantly for you to know, they were out of this world, blissful. My body starts vibrating really fast. I thought about how Dr. Joe had said we're a battery. So I put my right hand on top of my thigh and the left hand on my heart, 1 and 4 connected, and it was very hot at 1. My butt was on the edge of the seat of the chair and I could feel the vibrations going faster and faster. At one point, I had to hold onto the chair. I actually felt like it was levitating. They were going that fast. I couldn't feel the chair beneath me. So we go through each of the energy centers, and each time I'm so ready for each center. I'm right in them. And as we go up, it's feeling more and more ecstatic inside. So we get up to 6 and I'm out, I'm off. 6 splits open and there's all this light right up above me that I'm in. I don't know where I was, but I was going off. Energy was hitting my heart. Head was flicking back. 1 was on fire and vibrating and my body was sweating. I didn't get taught this at school or at home. That's sitting there thinking that. I thought meditation was all about sitting still. And somehow I don't think my pineal gland is calcified. So we go up to 7 and my body goes, oh yeah, we like this. We love it here. Energy hitting my heart. My head flicks back not once, but twice now. And it's wave after wave after wave. And I was really getting into a rhythm with this. And then we go to 8. Energy into the heart. Head knocks back not once, but 3 times now. Wave after wave after wave. The body, my body, still vibrating all over. I'm at 8. And Dr. Joe's guiding us in 8. And I'm like, we're going to 9, right? And 10. Please, dude, let's go. And I don't know whether I went there or what without needing to be guided, but that white hot fire I talked about from my body paint, that was nothing on this. The light was up there. I was there with it. It was in me and all around me. So Dr. Joe's like, it's time to lay down. Wait, what? My body was convulsing and convulsing with pure pleasure, and I didn't want it to stop. I was still up at 8 or wherever I was. I was sweating. My neck was starting to get a bit sore with being thrown all the way back, and I was questioning whether or not this was actually sustainable, but it felt that good. I didn't want it to stop, my friends. I didn't want to lay down. So everyone starts laying down and I'm still going off, just 1 more. And I lay down. My body's still convulsing on the ground. My head was trying to flick back, and that part back here got a bit sore. Anyhow, I'm lying down. The energy was a bit more chill. I'm thinking, I wonder if I can do that again. Keep it up, you know. And when Dr. Joe says sit up, I can guarantee you, my friends, that I was the first person off that floor, edge of seat in their chair. And off I go again. I think we sat up and lay down 3 times. I'm not sure, but I tell you, I never wanted to lay down, and the entire time, big, huge, powerful energy was going through me, and I was that energy, and it was the most incredible experience. I had no idea that this was going to happen. I was naive as. The second time we lay down, I felt myself get up, not physically, but my being get up and go. I've heard of people say they walk around the room and can see what's going on, but that didn't happen to me. I just got up and disappeared. See ya. That was a bit disappointing, but I let it go. And so, you know, when you lay down, you're meant to let all the information come in, receive it, etc. Well, again, I didn't really understand it. I just lay there with my body popping off, and I see these blue figures in front of me. And as I look at them, I can see white light from behind them, far off in the distance, and they was lighting them up from the back. And I see that they are black on the inside. I said to myself, well, they don't look like the blue beings other people have described. Ripped off, right? What's all that black about? So I just lay there trying not to overthink it when it came to me that was the nothing. They were the nothing, I was the nothing. So I'm a chill with this, right? I just went, whatever. And Dr. Joe starts pulling us back. And just before he said, what do you remember? I knew that I had returned to Source. I knew I am Source. I knew that I had come to the earth from Source when I was born. I came from the nothing, from pure love. And I know now I'm going to go back to Source when I pass on from here. So there's no need to be afraid of anything. Do you know how powerful it is to have that knowing within me? And I want that for you too, but you have to want that for yourself. So lying there with all of this information, my body still moving, all I could think about was how much I needed to go to the toilet. I was busting. I'd been that way for a while. I thought it's probably 6 o'clock. Dr. Joe says it's 8:30 and I almost fall over, except I'm laying down. Trying not to drool. 4.5 hours of total body, heart and brain gasms. 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and so on. If anyone needs to hear that, my fellow sisters need to hear it and know it. I rushed out to the toilet and I came back to Black Cockatoo asking how I was, and I said, girl, I need to change my knickers. She laughed and didn't believe me for a second. I was like, no babe, seriously, I do. 4.5 hours of complete body arousal. That was the most incredible experience I've ever had in my life. No doubt, no question. And did I just tell you, did you just hear me say I went back to Source? And remember when I said back in 2019 that I told my husband I wanted to elevate? I think we can all agree I just did. So we go into the walking meditation and my body's popping off. You have to put your hands over one and pull it up, reach back, push it into 6, right? The noble walk. Well, I started doing it and there was no rhythm to doing the breath with Dr. Joe. So I just let it go and let it do its thing. I can tell you, I felt one, can't show you down in the screen, but it was like out here, down there, it was out there. The whole time, pure bliss and ecstasy, light all around me. This is incredible. Within many of the meditations, Dr. Joe talks about your future self and the experiences you want to call in, like see yourself there and what does it feel like and what are you doing. I just want you to know that he had also said whenever he just lets the unknown do its thing, it's always incredible. So even though I was still wanting to manifest living in a clean, warm and mold-free home, right? The new car, this, that, whatever. The energy that I was in, that was me and all around me, was so big and unlike anything I'd ever experienced that I just let go of everything I've ever wanted and went, show me what you got. I'm here to do whatever it is and see whatever you want to show me. Does that make sense? So after that, I felt way more connected to the energy and the understanding of what I was doing within the Coherence Healings too. I sort of got it, you know. The Coherence Healings were quite reverent and they're also not this space for me to talk about. I kept asking with everything, I kept asking the energy, is there more? And it kept coming in and showing me just how much more there is. So even if the thought just popped into my head, I would like go off, right? And snapping back. Jolt to the heart, head snap back. I didn't need to try. So I go through the day, popping off random times all the time. And I must have you understand this, walking, sitting down, moving from one place to another, standing on the toilet, in the pool. I actually had to make sure I didn't go too deep in the water because it was coming in on its own and it was really powerful. Sometimes it was so powerful that it would take my breath away in shock. I also want you to know that it would come in and I would knock that shit back like it was the elixir of life, which so far as what I understand it is. I'd be in the present with it, my head's flicking back, delicious feelings in the body, and I'd actively, consciously ask more, please. And more would show itself. It's like rewiring my brain, right? At one point when Dr. Joe was lecturing in the afternoon, I'm going off in my chair, I see Wombat watching me and we giggle and laugh. She knows what's going on. We'd talked about it at snack time. And she keeps giving me this little side-eye glance. I didn't know it, but she was actually a Healy. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there and the energy is not slowing down or coming down at all. And at one point I say, come here, can you just hold me? And she scoots over and I grab hold of her and just give it to her. I'd give her the energy. As I'm there holding her, I can feel, you know, that incoherence I talk about. I could feel that. It was like that. It was sort of very small and incoherent, sort of like white noise on the TV within her space. So I sort of went, here, take this. I don't know what I was doing. All I knew, to my knowledge, I had this enormous amount of beautifully coherent energy within me, and there was more, so much more to give. I said, can you feel it? I said to her, can you feel this? And she's like, oh yeah, I can. After a while, I'm just sitting there by myself listening to Dr. Joe. I'm still going off into the back of the heart, straight up into the brain. My head's just going off. And the head's shooting up, and he comes and he stands right in front of me. And I'm in the second row and he's like right there. And he's talking to everyone right there. And I'm like, dude, I can't do this. I can't look at you. I can't deal with you right now. I've just spent 4.5 hours, whole body, blissfully ecstatic, while you take me back to source. So I put my hand on my heart, I closed my eyes, and I just sat with the energy, and I just popped off. Don't look at me. Had to block him out. Day 7 dawned, and the music that was playing when everyone was coming in and settling down was again right up my alley. There was no dancing, but my body was vibing to the music. I was popping off to it. People were talking and stuff and they wanted to chat, but I just wanted to stay inside of me. And that was one thing I'd noticed throughout the retreat, was that I was more interested obviously in what was going on in my body, but I was observing the outer world as well. I went up to the speakers because the music was so profound to the energy in my body, and I wanted to vibe as much as possible with it. I stand there with my eyes closed, body popping off, and all of this information came in. I can heal my family. I can take this power back to my life and share it. And I started to get a little emotional about that, because when you're in a relationship with someone and you have kids with them, it's not just about you and them anymore. And we had done our best to put our children first and failed miserably at times with our addictions. And the last 3 years had just been hell. And when you're trying to change and the person who's been with you forever is not there, it's sad. You know, I could never find an answer. Should I stay or should I go? And I knew without a doubt that I couldn't change him. Not my job, right? But it's just really sad, and it's also something that had been extraordinarily difficult to accept on that journey of the outer and the inner world and accepting things, acceptance. Someone tapped me on the shoulder and I removed my eye mask. I find Dr. Joe sitting on the stage ready to go. I just go and lie down for this one, and off I go on my little energy dance. With this meditation, Dr. Joe again took us through the energy centers, and this time I felt 2 open up. I'd felt it before, but not to this degree, and I start crying. There was a lot of emotion I'd held in there, and it was the same with 3 and 5. They all broke open more, and I felt them more than I'd had before. I was quietly crying, and there was snot coming out and tears, and I only had a scarf that like doubles as a tissue, right? I was just a mess. I was conscious of the others around me, and my body was just like sobbing gently. It was definitely a different experience to the pineal gland meditation, but I could still feel all of the energy centers, and they were electric. The energy was still going through me, okay? Like, I'd worked on all of this generational trauma that had come down both lines of my family, especially my mother's side. And it was epically haunting and difficult work to go to a cellular level and change that, or energetic level. And I could feel too, especially heal and change in that meditation. And that was really beautiful for me. Okay. we go straight down to the beach to do the walking body electric, and my body was popping off. Talk about electricity. I was walking as fast as I could to get to the beach to stay in the state, but I couldn't walk properly. My body was jumping, energy was hitting my heart, head was flinging back. Sometimes it would come in and take my breath away. At one point it came right in and I went like this. And I saw a tree and I made a beeline for it and said, please hold me up for a sec. I just need some help with that. It was lovely. Then I kept going onto the beach. And straight into the walking meditation. And this meditation was hilarious. I was hot. I couldn't walk straight. My body was pinging off its head. My toes were curling in pleasure as I stumbled around the sand. Oh, girls, are you listening to me? I struggled to keep myself upright because it was feeling so delicious inside of me. So we come to the end of the retreat and Dr. Joe's like, you're going to send me an email with the subject heading, you're not going to believe this. And I'm sitting there going, well, too late, brother. That happened 5 years ago. I just didn't know who to send it to, right? Time's passed. Joe said something about light, just one brief sentence. And I know he had talked about it all week. And I'm like, wait a second. I have to revisit my body paint and the first story I made up that was related to a new dawn. And I looked at what I painted and I'm going, hold up, what's up with this? And I shit you not, it took me a month after the retreat putting this story together. I finally listened to the video of story 1 and my head just about pops off. So here you go, check this out. Just a quick little reminder, 2018, second time body painting ever, theme a new dawn, no knowledge of Dr. Joe's work, just an unexplainable white hot fire inside of me for 3 weeks. I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land where we meet today, the Wathaurong people, the Wurundjeri people, the Toggerong people, the Dja Dja Wurrung and the Bunurong people who form the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders both past and present. In the beginning, there was sound. Om. As the sound vibrated throughout space and time, it pulsed into white light. And so the morning star was born. The star reflected its beauty across the universe. It morphed into Aurora, the rosy goddess of dawn. Aurora was so bright, her light was reflected into crystals, and a flower bloomed. From the flower, a serpent rose. The serpent travelled across the crystals, north, south, east, west. He laid down the mountains, the land, and the oceans for us to see the beauty of a new dawn. As the morning star precedes the dawn, it reflects back to us as the evening star, reminding us of the coming of a new dawn. That fucking body paint. That did my head in for such a long time, and now I know exactly where it came from. Source. Friends, are you getting any of this? Sit your ass down and meditate. Get in your think box, get in your play box until your body lights up with joy. I guarantee you it feels amazing and good and beautiful and right. Like the latent energy that was within me awoke. The serpent awoke in me 5 years ago. I had no idea what was going on, and now I can finally explain what happened to me. Not only explain, but understand it and feel it whenever I want. Okay, I know I'm probably not tripping JD out here, but I want to trip you all out a little bit further, maybe a little bit with him, and let you know that 4 months before that body painting, I attended a class by Nick Wolf, who is one of the OGs of the face paint world, an absolute master. And what did he teach us in that class? All about light, the golden ratio, and the Fibonacci sequence. which is what I applied to that body paint. And I have to show you the paint that he and another OG, Matteo Alfanotti, did at the Worlds in Austria when I was there in 2018. On the day of their paint, I could feel this golden thread connecting me to watching them paint it. It was out of this world. Look at this paint, it's so beautiful. Talk about brain fizz. You need to know that if this random bunch of atoms can do it, you can do it. You've just got to want it. More than whatever is keeping you in those low frequency feelings. My body, my brain, my limited beliefs tried to keep me down again and again, over and over and over again for 3 fucking years. And I kept showing up. I kept going because of that feeling from that fucking body paint. And you know what? Nobody believed me about that feeling I walked around with. Y'all know I'm gonna send this to some people, right? So the retreat finishes. Amazing. Beyond worth the $4,000 for me. Do you think my energy stops? Do you think because I went to the retreat, I was letting that energy stay at the retreat? Nope. Not at all in the slightest. I didn't work this fucking hard for that to happen. And I also couldn't stop it. That's important for you to understand. It was coming in all on its own all of the time. I left for home the next day, and if you want to go to a retreat, I would plan to get there a day earlier and leave the day after the retreat. It was really good to have those little downtimes before and after the event. Anyhow, I get up the next day to get on the plane, and my new friend Eagle is with me at the airport, and I say, "Can I do a meditation with you?" I'd told her about what had happened when I held someone's hand, and I wanted to see what we could do. So we're sitting in the busy little airport. I'm popping off with all this energy. We put on the Go Love meditation on our headphones. I grab her hand and off I go. As I'm doing the meditation and all of this energy is going off inside of me, I start thinking about how much I love her and how much fun we had had together. Eagle had organised an Airbnb and I'd put myself out there to stay with her. We rode our bikes home every day from the event together, and I just focused on that. And then I connect to her and I can feel her energy and mine together side by side, and it's really beautiful. And when Dr. Joe says, come together with love, or put their heart in your heart, I sort of physically melt into her side and everything within me softens. And I could feel two become one, and the love and warmth that I felt was out of this world. I felt all of these people standing around and watching what was happening, like in the midst of the airport. The announcements were coming on and people are bustling all around, but there's this crowd of people in front of us just observing. And we finish, and I'm surprised to see there's no one there in front of us. And I ask Eagle if she felt anything, and she's like, I could feel you doing your thing next to me, but it was just a meditation for me. So, okay, cool. It's time to get on the plane, and this I was excited about, my friends, because I was going to join the Mile High Club just by meditating. I get on the plane and we take off up in the air, energy going through me. I put on a meditation. I can't remember, I think it was Botec 4. I fell asleep for some of it, but it was deliciously incredible. We get into Melbourne and I've got this 4-hour car ride home. And I was a little concerned about driving actually. And that was a very interesting car ride home. The energy was still going through me. It was from down here, it was just like smacking straight up. It was very enjoyable, very powerful, very coherent energy racing up through my body all the way out. The light that was pinging inside of me was really bright on that car ride home. And I was thinking about how I was going to tell the kids, because it was such a noticeable movement and it was coming in all on its own. In the end, I decided to just let it go and wait for someone to say something. It was my youngest who did. My daughter saw it too, but my teenage son's oblivious. My little one goes, "What's going on, Mum? Are you all right?" I just said, "It's energy moving through my body. I'm fine. It feels really good, hun." On the last day of the retreat, I sat with Kookaburra at the resort for dinner, and we were talking about the obvious energy that was flowing through me and how it feels like an orgasm, but better. And he made a joke about how I'd locked myself in my room. See you soon, kids. Mummy's just got to be alone. And I swear I haven't laughed like that in forever. And we were splitting sides. And I'm not locking myself in my room. It's just happening all the time, wherever I am. So a few days in, and it shows no sign of slowing down, I actually contacted Encephalon with some video footage of what was going on. Whilst I wasn't mad about it at all, I was a teensy bit concerned because I love getting high. And my brain was just going to spontaneously combust with pleasure, right? And am I getting addicted to this? Is this right? Am I okay? It's so new, it's so profound, it's so noticeable, it's so pleasurable, like unlike anything I've ever felt yet. I thought I'd try the Noble Walk meditation in a dormant volcano near where I live. As soon as I start, I'm connecting to the ground. I can feel the energy pulsing in waves down into the earth, and I have big chunky rubber boots on. I can feel the energy and it's running straight up through me. My closed eyes start immediately moving back and forth like in REM, and then they start vibrating super fast. It's like this little buzz in my eyes. I can see my pineal gland in front of me, and it's got these 4 purple beams coming out of it like an X, and it's vibrating so fast it's buzzing too. I start walking, and I'm telling you, the amount of grace that flooded into me in that noble walk was so humbling. I stop again and shut my eyes to do the breath, and I'm in my heart space, and it's just right out here. It's so far out. Mind you, this is a Thursday morning at 10 a.m. and I'm going off. Now, when it comes to sending out the signal and receiving, I'm just there going, do what you gotta do. I know it's bigger than my tiny immaterial manifestations I used to try and make happen, right? It's huge. And after the meditation, I take off my headphones, and everything around me is so still. There's wind in the trees, and the birds are singing, and the animals, and there's cars in the background, and a couple of people walk past, but everything is so still, it's almost eerie. It was like everything is in its most perfect state. I was also noticing the energy would bounce around to music, and certain words and thoughts would set it off. So since I returned home from the retreat, it's about 3 months, the energy is still within me and all around me. I could spend another 5 hours talking about the experiences I've been having within meditations and also in my life. However, I want to show you some more of the energy that's beating through me. So like I said in part 1, really struggled with my relationship with my husband, and just knowing, and to have arrived at some answer to go, okay, I'm going to show you this energy. I'm going to go into a meditation, and I'm going to hold your hand, and you're going to open your heart for this as much as what you can and see what you can feel. And well, we'll go from there. But like I said before, I really don't think there's anything more important than this work. And getting from the last 3 years of really applying myself to go from those low frequency vibrations to where I am now, it's like I never knew. I never knew, but I trusted. Like, from my body pain experience that I had in 2018, when I actually woke that energy up in my heart, but I didn't know what had happened. And then finding Dr. Joe's work in 2020 and going, that guy knows exactly what happened to me, and I am going to do what he says. And I have come up against myself so many times. Like, it has been 50,000 times of really trying to shut that fight or flight response down in my body. And when you're coming up against anxiety again and again and again, and you want to kill yourself and you're not really sure what the fuck is going on, I mean, people need to know that you can change and you can heal yourself, and you can have this wild energy running through your body that certain words and certain sounds and certain thoughts send me off. I know that. I mean, I certainly don't need... I don't need a husband. Friday, the music's going on in the shop. I can no longer go shopping because I'm just pulsing to the music and doing that. You know, I'm still looking around the edges of this, right? I was home for a few days and I ended up getting sick and I started my period. I started to freak out thinking the energy was gone and I was slipping back into my previous self. I gave myself a stern talking to and remembered I had gone to source and come back, so calm down, right? Interesting to note, the next month I started menstruating. I'd been meditating quite a bit. The energy was really full on and I lay down and my husband says, "It looks like you have a brain tick." I was like, yes, that's what it is. And I started to freak out, I've got a brain tumour. And I Googled brain tick and it came up with this image, which makes perfect sense, right? And then I spent the next 2 days going, I need to be able to control this energy. So I worked on calming myself, breathing into the present moment and lowering me. And that worked. So I left that fear behind and I've just been rolling with it. It feels so out of this world amazing. I must keep reminding you of that. I did this meditation at night once and I thought I'd see how far out of my body I can feel my heart space. Because I'd noticed that when I was in meditation, I'd have to have my hands here. Like this is where the outside of my heart is. So I went, how far out can you go? And it went out to here. At this point, I'm like, you know what? I think it's bigger than that. One day I caught up with my horticulture teacher. Most of what had happened to me up until Infinite Doors I've shared with her. And it was then that my tongue tied, trying to explain this to someone. How do I do it? I gave perhaps a PG version of what went down, a bit watered down. And you know what she said? "You're glowing, your skin looks amazing and you seem different." And I laughed and I said, "It's not hard to when you're walking around orgasming all the time." I told her I had healed my anxiety. And you know what she did? She put her hand on the table and said, "Touch wood." And that right there, that's one of those moments, my friends, that you have to become aware of and decide whether you're going to believe what someone else says, does, or behaves, or are you going to believe what's happening within you and what you're capable of. How unlimited are you, truly? You can bet your bottom ass dollar which one I'm choosing. And I will just add, it can be difficult to continue to choose that. Yeah, even now, I still find it does come in sometimes. Dr. Joe, JD, Joseph, we need to talk. We have information to share, I'm sure of it. Thank you for all of the study that you have generously shared with me through your books and meditations. You just tell me when the retreat called A New Dawn is and I'll meet you there. Also, I haven't changed my diet at all. So you could take some more of my shit and study that if you like. And my diet is mostly sugar, friends. Thank you to everyone who attended the Infinite Doors retreat. You provided such a safe space for me to feel safe to go all in. Every single person that was there was willing to take that radical responsibility for their thoughts, feelings and behaviours. And there's absolute power there. They're looking for their more within because they know there is more. And I know what that more is now. It's Source. And Source is big energy, friends, and it's calling you back. It wants to greet you in the unknown. It's waiting there. It's always been there. You just have to put your attention on it. I ask you, what does love feel like? We can see effects of our emotions, but we can't actually see our emotions. We can hug, kiss, make love, and we can show our love to others via caring for them. But what does love feel like within your space? For me, now that I'm actually feeling the pure love source energy, it feels extremely warm and pleasurable inside of my whole body. And I have times within meditation where it overwhelms me. I have tears leaking out of my eyes, and there's this tingling that radiates throughout my body from my heart space. It's like a wave or a pulse that comes through me, and it can start slow and build up, or it just comes straight in, take my breath away. It's difficult to find words that express the profundity of love, I feel. So I would like to pull out one of those feelings you might have written down or felt whilst listening to my story. I'm a pick jealousy, right? I've had a few girls tell me they're jealous of me and this energy that flows through me. If you're jealous of this, you need to get jealous of the drowning in the river and the breaking of self that I did in the previous 3 years, because that's what got me here. I've searched through the dictionary and thesaurus for a word appropriate to how it was, and the best I can come up with is it was a cunt of a journey. It was the cuntiest thing I ever did. And if me saying that word makes you feel uncomfortable, you better get comfy in that space, because there's a whole lot more discomfort when you start clearing your path to the divine. It took me 3 supremely shitty years that I respect and honour of consciously sitting in those low vibration states until I was able to be strong enough to tell my body, no bitch, we're not doing that anymore, right? My brain was definitely making it all worse, and for a really long time. I analysed the shit out of everything. I was so programmed in that survivor state. I was locked and trapped within. You must understand, for me, this wasn't just putting on Dr. Joe's meditations and reading his books. It wasn't writing down 3 things I'm grateful for. It wasn't giving myself a high five in the mirror. It wasn't putting in atomic habits. It wasn't ice water therapy. It definitely wasn't just think happy thoughts or just be positive. It wasn't pushing the feelings away. It wasn't getting in touch with my inner child and doing all of the generational trauma and childhood trauma work. It was a combination of all of that and then some. And then a lot bloody more. I looked around the edges of my entire life and I got so real and honest about how I had lived my life. I then burnt the fucking house down around me. And all of this was happening inside of me, doing the work mostly on my own, and this is how it has to be. It's our own personal journey, and it'll look different to you. The divine within me has been taking me as far as I can go to share this as best as I can with my truth, my love, my honesty. I completely recognise that this may be viewed as extra. The work I did was extra. And it's only now that I'm here in this space that I'm able to see just how hard I worked at changing my brain pathways, at opening up to life when I didn't want to be in it, and to actively and consciously understanding what I needed in each moment to help me to get to the next. This is the most authentic version of me I can bring to say, do the fucking work. And I am loving the shit out of being my most authentic self. This energy that is within me and all around me is extra. Do the fucking work. I made these t-shirts, right, to help with it all. And if everyone buys one, I'll be able to get an EEG device and we can all have a look at what my brain is up to. I know there's people that sit up in the peanut gallery who choose not to believe this, and I'm more than okay with that. I do want to throw something at you though. How about trying out these meditations if you feel shit? Because they actually do just make you feel better and more able to cope with each day and whatever life is throwing at you, yeah? I challenge you to meditate to any of his meditations every day for 90 days and tell me what's happened, you know? I want to show you something really cool about plants. If you're struggling to make sense of any of your journey, look to plants or nature. They'll teach you more than what you realise. This here, if you can actually see it. This is a Banksia seed pod. It was a flower and then a fruit and now it holds seeds, right? Do you know how we get the seeds out of here? Heat. They pop open with the heat and they release the seeds. Now then you pull the seeds out and you have a look at the seeds. They're tiny. And then you look at all the different seeds in the world and how different they are. All different shapes and sizes, right? But what do seeds contain? Seeds contain life. Now, how do we propagate these banksia seeds? By scarifying. We have to make a slit with a knife in the seed in just the right place and just the right depth to help it come out. You know, some seeds lay dormant for years until they have just the right conditions and pop, off they go and grow. My work has definitely been like a banksia seed. You cannot tell me you don't have time to meditate because you have kids. You cannot tell me that you have no time for this work. The more that you feel, that's actually source energy. It's calling you to greet it in the unknown. I thought it was my future self, but it's actually source. And it's calling out to you to meet it in the unknown. And the more you feel inside of you, that's where you'll find it, inside of you. Let's all just put our hands on our heart and take a deep breath and be in this moment. What do I know about this light that lives within me? That it's always been there. I just didn't have my attention on it. Didn't know how to put my attention on it. I had to clear the path within. Nobody else could do that for me. This light recognizes itself in others. I was watching a testimonial from someone with MS who was standing up at a retreat out of his wheelchair. And in the background, you will see this lady with black gloves on and her hands are open like this. And when I saw her, my body convulsed. Energy. One straight up to the top of my head, bright light. I've had many of these types of experiences since returning from the retreat. Just in day-to-day life too. It's been really interesting. I'm here to show you the light that exists within me. I'm not here to convince, coerce, control you to believe me. I was getting really in my head about this story and how I was going to get people to watch the entirety of it, right? Because 3 years, just as important as what went down at the Infinite Doors retreat. I sent a message to Wattlebird telling her I was doing this video testimonial, and I opened up to her reply when I was all up in my head about the worth of my story. And as soon as I read it, the light pinged at the top of my head, straight up from 1. It was really strong and delicious. It was very bright and strong within, and it took my breath away. And I understood that I am here to show you and inspire you to cross your section of the river. This light wants to show itself to others. And I've struggled a little within this space of creation in the last, how long has it been? Almost 3 months. I've looked around the edges of it all, yeah? Whether I should be sharing it, etc., whatever. But if you remember, when I was at the retreat, I just went, take me, show me, I'll go where you want. So here I find myself. I know that words, sounds, music, thoughts, feelings, people's touch and experiences set this light off within me. It wakes me up in the night. It goes off when I'm driving. It's actually quite fascinating. I've noticed that if I have a thought that is a low frequency, something that pulls me down, my body will jolt me. It's now telling me to remember we don't live there anymore. You're the one who told me. I've noticed the light when I am around a crowd of people. I went to the Anzac Day ceremony where I live, and there was maybe about 500 people. And the whole time, it's just gently knocking my head back. The energy is strong around grief and the loss of a loved one. Pure love, right? I know that if you put me in a ballroom with 1,000 other people, Dr. J comes on stage, the music starts, his voice goes, I'm out and I'm off vibrating back to source. To be honest, I don't think that I have really come back. I think about that 4.5 hour meditation and my body is in thrall. Like, it's quite incredible. I had no idea it could feel this good within my body. And I want that for you, but you have to want it for yourself. You have to clear your path. I knew that if I am the creator of my life, then I needed to sort this shit out within me. I must have you know this, so that when you've decided to cross the river and you're drowning, you know that changing yourself is possible. You know that this light is there. Your journey and experience with Source will be different to mine. And when you are struggling to make sense of your life and you cannot breathe because the pain is destroying you, you can come here and listen to this and know that I sit with you in that space, because I can't do it for you. And you know that. If you're the one sitting there going, shit, yep, I got work to do, you know it, you can feel it, right? And I was there too. And I know that space incredibly well. I'm so familiar with it, I'm not going to live there anymore. Do you know what's really cool about all this? I cannot be gaslit about this at all. You can try, but it's not going to work. And if you want to judge me about my journey, feel free. There's nothing that anyone could say that would be worse than how I've judged myself. Everyone knows what it's like to beat themselves up, right? Some are just way better at it than others. I'm very good at it, or I was very good at it. The way you show up in the comment section will be your vibe you're bringing to your life. Once I'm finished here, I'm going to be off vibrating with Source and showing up to the divine within me. I've got some art to create with Source. I'm just here to show you how I did it, to let you know it's possible, and to remind you again and again that it feels fabulous within me and all around me. If you would like to share with me, I'm really interested to know where you sat throughout this video. Did you hop around a lot, or were you right front and center the whole time? I would love to have open conversations about all of this. To those that sat in these sections, even for a small amount of time, because I know what my equation is missing now. Human connection, real life humans in the flesh. I'm greeting the unknown each and every day the new dawn comes. I want this for you so bad, but I'm not here to force you to do the work. I'm not here to force you to meditate. I'm not here to force you to stop drinking alcohol, and I'm certainly not here to force you to believe me. I'm here to inspire you to walk your difficult and at times incredibly lonely path back to Source, to find your more. Figure your shit out, sit down and meditate. Love yourself enough to do this work and light up from the inside out. If we ever meet in the real world, the door to the unknown is wide open, because that's where I am now. I know I'm here doing this. I know I'm in my body, some of me, but I'm in a dream, and I'm observing the program, right? And it's such a bizarre place. And I'll let you in on a little bit more of the divine at work here. Last week, I walked into this studio and asked about hiring the space to film this. And they said Tuesday or Thursday. And I felt around and I said, oh yeah, Thursday works for me with the kids and whatnot. And a couple of days later, I looked up the date, because in the now, there's no time, right? And I shook my head. Today is actually the 15th of June, which marks 4 years to the day since I almost drank myself to death. You cannot make this shit up. I'm gonna throw my script away, and I'll see you in the unknown, friends.
Thank you.
I just have one more quick thing to say.
Okay, sure.
Sorry.
No.
If the competition hadn't been 3 weeks ago, I can guarantee that I could not have presented this to you. I can pinpoint my 3.5 year faith paint journey with very bright clarity. And 2 years ago, I stood here and I presented my first ever body paint. And it feels like the sun set hard and fast. And I spent a really long time in the darkness. Last November, I went to Nick Wolf's class, and it was like the light began to creep into my world again, just like the beginning of a new day. 3 weeks ago, the first rays of sun hit me in the face, and I knew I wanted to rise up and do my best and compete. When the sun begins to rise, it rises really fast. Exactly like these last couple of weeks, it's been blindingly bright and burning hot at times. And it was about 5 days in, and it felt like I grew a new neural pathway. I just honestly couldn't have done this 3 weeks ago. It would not have looked like this. It's been really intense, and this speaks to me about who I am. And this paint proves to those voices in my head, the ones that tell me I'm not good enough, then the ones that tell me that I'm just a mother and just a housewife, that I'm not. I'm an artist. So today I'm standing in the new dawn, and the sun is really bright, and I'm basking in the full glow of the sunrise. And just as you see a new dawn, and it forces you to be present in that moment, I have not stopped being present for the last 3 weeks, and right now, and I'm just super happy with that.
You have a lot to be happy about.
So thank you. Beautiful.
Thanks so much.
Well, you're awesome, aren't you? Drunk. Seriously, get your shit together, girl. Seriously. Okay, so the unknown has just gone and knocked me out of the ballpark. I did not expect at all to be filming this extra part. I don't expect anyone to understand this, and I don't even expect anyone to still be here. This is quite a long way around for a book review. So the day I finished on the 15th of June, I was so excited to be finished filming, and I was like, great, I just need to edit and then I can share it, you know, get it out, you know, just move it on. The very next day, however, I woke up and my neck, my pinched nerve in my neck, that thing had just gone haywire, and I could not, oh man, I spent 6 days writhing in pain on the bed. I was vomiting in pain. I did not wish nerve pain on anyone. It's horrific. You cannot think, especially as it was up near my brain. I just couldn't think. I went to the hospital. They're like, we can't do anything for you. Here's some endone. That made me vomit. And I had to shelve my entire life and go, whatever, okay, like I have to be right in this moment to try and get through this pain. The only thing that was working was blessing of the energy centers, and I would lie there and I would do those meditations and my whole body would be filled with white light, and for that entire length of the meditation I wouldn't be in any pain. So I'm there and I'm like, oh my God, this is like death, right? What's going on? What do I need to learn here? What's happening? Now, I learnt 2 things. So 2 days before I filmed, somehow I found myself looking at Becoming Supernatural on the Google book review, and me being me, I was looking at the 1-star reviews, right? And as I'm reading through them, I'm starting to feel, I guess, fear. And I'm like, babe, you can't sit here. You can't do this anymore. You can't sit up the back and be a ziffer about the energy that's in your body. You have to make a choice as to what you believe. So again, that was challenging. And the second thing it taught me was that because I really had to shelve this entire testimonial or whatever this is, right? It was like, I just have to shelve it and forget about it. I'm in so much pain, and it taught me that when this story is ready to share, it'll be ready, and I just have to, again, sit with myself and continue, all right? And now I know why. So it's been just over 2 months. It's the end of August, and it has been, man, I'm having the wildest time. The unknown is one of the most beautifully imperfectly perfect places. And I've been here before. I remember this from when I was a kid, right? Anyhow, so mostly for the 2 months of this energy that exists in me, it races me to the beach, right? And I stand on the water's edge and I look out at that ocean, and the energy, it bubbles out of me. I've never felt anything like this. This is the coolest feeling I've ever had in my life, and I am so grateful to know it and to be able to be in it whenever I want. It's wild, okay? I've been writing everything down because it was like, whoa, this is like wild, and I'm well aware that we're on over 2 hours of sharing, so I'm going to just try and not tell you everything at this moment, just the important stuff. So naturally my neck, it got better, and I was like, is this energy still here? It has been. And okay, I have questioned this energy, like, because I know my brain, and I know addiction, and I know relapse, right? And I am always questioning, is this right for me? What I'm doing, is this, like, when you're conscious, it can get pretty exhausting, but also like, am I making the right choice that aligns me to who I want to be, right? So I put this song on after I finished meditating down at the beach. I put this song on, and I don't even know how to explain this properly. The song goes on, and then it lifts, and there's this part where it like buzzes out and comes back, and I don't know how to explain it. And I've got my head thrown back, and I'm facing the sun, and I've got my eyes closed, and I'm going off. The energy's going off, and it's like I've become the frequency of the music. And in my mind, I can see these green lines with dots on the end, and they're all like maybe like a computer, those little boards, maybe a little bit like that. And I'm off my head, and I'm like, this is like crack cocaine. I mean, I haven't had that before, but I know what addiction is, right? So that song, I've had to lay off that song. I'm like, that's not really what this energy is for. I know I said at the start that I'm a frame of reference, and within the story I've talked about how as a frame of reference this energy is like an orgasm, and I want to say now that it's not really like that, which is weird. How do I describe this? I have these heart surges, and like it's like I'm a light beam, like, when there's a light on and then it like goes brighter, it's like that, but it's my body, and I don't really get it. And I know everyone talks about doing the breath, and I need you to know I'm not doing the breath. I'm just in the energy. If I'm at 1, I'm at 6. If I'm at 6, I'm at 4. If I'm at 4, my 4 is out and up at 8, and I'm off doing whatever I'm doing. Like, I just feel extraordinarily different, obviously. And I've questioned whether this is too much energy, and I've come to the conclusion that it is so much energy. There is so much energy, and there is so much more, and I want to say I just go back there and get it, but because it's like right here in me, it's just there. So I go down to the beach, I dance on the beach, I fully appreciate that I look unusual. I know that I'd be getting looks because old mate, there's been plenty of old mates, but old mate came up to me and he's like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And he's like, "I'm just checking in, just checking that you're all right." And I just put my hand on his elbow and I just say, "Mate, I'm not high on drugs." I'm just dancing and I'm having a great time. And he's like, "Oh, you look like you're having the time of your life." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am. And I'm fine. Thank you." So I've been lucid dreaming, which has been fascinating. So I've always been aware that I'm in my dreams, but I've never really been able to change the course of my dreams. And the monsters have always come for me in any shape and form. The monsters have always come. I've had night terrors since I was like 4. I've had recurring dreams, like nightmares. It's, yeah, pretty full on, but I want to tell you about this really cool dream I had. So I was in my dream and I saw a couple of people and they started to morph into monsters. And as I felt them do that, I said, "No, if I'm in a dream here now, I'm going up. I'm going to see something else because I'm not doing monsters." And what happened was I fell back into the most delicious heart surge and everything went white and warm and lovely. And then I woke up to this, like in my dream, I woke up to this most magnificent nighttime landscape scene where there was this massive body of water and then the sky was just phenomenal. It was this just deep purple color and it sort of went down into a rainbow color and there were clouds. And I don't know if anyone knows Super Mario 2 from back in the day, but it was sort of like those graphics where they're like really bubbly and everything was crystal clear and had a glow to it. And I'm like, that was beautiful. And I just love that I can remember that and know that I can choose in my dreams, I can choose to go higher, you know, and see something other than monsters. So I have been traveling through portals and doors in this dream state as well, and I can feel it happening. And I've written down a couple of them as well. This is fucking wild over here, okay? Everyone's asleep, so that's why I'm a bit quiet. So as we go along, I can feel me moving closer to the completion of this or like where I can share this story, right? So we get to like a week and a half ago and I'm like thinking about that body paint and just there's a lot of thoughts and I'm like, I think that I am the paint. I think that I am the paint as well as the artist holding the brush, and I am the color and I am the light, and I'm like sort of tripping out on that a little bit. And then on August the 19th I was meant to go out with my Green Queens for dinner and it got cancelled, so I booked my husband and I 2 tickets to go to this Heart Warrior sound immersion and cacao ceremony. And you know how I said my equation is missing people? Yeah, it's missing people. So I want to just give a shout out to Dingo, Ben, Kimberly, Tom, and everyone who shared space with me that night for this to occur. Okay, so we go in to the space and my energy is, my heart energy, 146, it's starting, right? And we go and sit down and we get a cup of cacao and you have to bring it into your heart and have an intention. And my intention was to have strength to continue to be in the unknown, because it's challenging. This energy has been challenging, even as wild as it is. It's been amazing, but it was just strength. Okay, so we lay down on our mats, and just pretend I'm laying down, okay? And there's a few people lying up above me and then around me, okay? And Dingo, he brings out his didge and starts doing the didge medicine where he breathes it over everyone. And as he gets closer to me and he breathes it over people, I can feel it in my heart, and my heart's like, wow, yeah, okay, it's like that. It's coming out of my heart, and I'm like on the ground like this. There's a lot of fucking energy, okay? There's a lot of energy. And just before I continue, I need to ask, who the fuck is on the other side of the river doing this sort of stuff? Because I need to talk to you, okay? Because this is wild. So I'm over there. I'm lying down, and as it comes over like my husband, as it comes over my husband, and there's a guy up there and there's some people there, I can feel it, and my heart is like coming out. Oh my God, this is wild. Anyhow, it comes over me. He comes over me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. And one thing that I've been practicing with this energy is, like, when I'm down at the beach, I go like, I take my arm out and I take this energy out, and then I bring it back, right? I don't know how I'm doing this. I'm just going by feel, okay? And it feels amazing. And sometimes when I take it all the way out, I let it go, and it goes out into the universe, and it's like, whoa, this is huge. And then sometimes when it comes back in, and when I receive the energy, I am almost on my knees with, like, this is powerful stuff, and it's so beautiful, and I got tears, and it's so full on. Anyhow, so I've been practicing that. So I was doing that in the meditation, as I was lying down with this stuff. And Ben then says, talks about the meditation and how we're going to be going on the medicine wheel, and we're going to be doing north, south, east, west. Those points we're going around. And in my head, I'm like, oh, excuse me. I'm like, oh, this sounds like my body paint and the snake in the picture in the snake's mouth, right? Okay, sorry, I had to change over to my iPad, so the quality's not as great. But anyhow, I have to finish this story. So my ears prick up, and I'm like, I think this is the body paint. This is like where the snake's mouth came from, and the picture inside the snake. Because I couldn't explain that with everything else that I've done, right? So Ben is like, he's like, okay, let's do this breath, right? And the breath is opening the mouth as wide as you can, right? And breathing in and out like that. And as I'm doing it, I'm like I've got my mouth wide open, and I'm like, this is the snake's mouth. And it's like I'm in the snake's mouth, and I am the snake's mouth. And then we walk up this mountain, and we get to this stone stuff, and, we're going around the medicine wheel, and I'm like in the inside of the snake's mouth, and meanwhile, there's all this hard energy coming out, and I'm like taking it up, and I'm bringing it down, and I'm just like laughing, going, what are we doing? I'm just here. Okay, so we're up in the mountain. We look to the east, to the rising sun. Then we turn to the south, which is the snake. And then we go to the west, and it's the setting sun. And as the sun is setting, I'm like, oh, I get it. I can share this now. Like, this is like the creation. This is like the beginning and the end. And I am spinning the fuck out over it, because it was like I was the paint, and it's like that's where the paint came from. It's like that moment, that now, that's where the paint came from, but it was 5 years ago when I painted it. So yeah, I'm tripping out, I'm done. Okay. So we turn to the north, and then we turn into the center, and all the meanwhile that's going on, there's this crystal condor that's flying around with us, and I'm just like, this is hilarious. I've got tears, I'm laughing, the energy's going off, I'm having the time of my life. Like, I actually wanted to get up and dance, but it was like, just lie down and receive all the energy, right? So, and then like, it's like, I can share this now. This is the now. I've aligned myself to this to share it, and what a fucking ride. Like, what a ride. It's been wild. And there's part of my brain that literally does not understand this, and it has to, like, I have to shut it off because I don't get it. Because everything in the now, in the present moment, in the creation of source, is the most imperfectly perfect sense of everything. And yeah, that's all I know there. So there you go, tripping out. And I really want to talk to the person who sat in that seat, okay? Because that's who this was for. I was watching a TikTok the other day about this guy who has started taking magnesium and how that's healed his anxiety. And everybody's like, oh, I started taking it and I felt my anxiety too, and oh my God. And I'm like, maybe I should have just taken magnesium and I would have healed my anxiety. Yeah. So I fully know that being in joy and living, being alive, is what I was missing, you know. And there are people who may watch this and say, you know, talk about this energy and be like, oh, that's really dangerous. But you know what the most dangerous thing is, from my understanding, is apathy. And apathy, I always questioned why it was the lowest on that frequency scale, like, because I never sort of understood that when I was in it. And it's only now that I look at it that I can go, you know what, apathy is absolutely scary and dangerous. And because you have gone as far away from source and wholeness as you can, and you don't really give a shit if you come back or not. And what the hardest thing for me to do was to be consciously aware of the apathy and to be in it and to try and pull myself out of it. And then I'd just be back there and it'd be like, oh, that's not where I want to be. Oh, back there. And you just like really don't give a shit. So maybe that's why it took me such a long time to figure that shit out. But then I also think, isn't it interesting that I went to the retreat and all this energy happened, and then I went to that sound immersion and the cacao ceremony and that happened, and it all just like, I tell you what it feels like, right? It feels like everything has collapsed in on itself and folded in, and it has spiraled out into a new unknown, and it's one that I'm not scared of. And that is powerful stuff for me. And I also, speaking of that apathy, I do not have a drag on me, and we all know that drag, and I don't have that drag anymore, and that is fucking powerful stuff, you know. I also think about how Dr. Joe says, he talks about how they measure the energy in the room at his retreats, and he talks about it's not how much energy, it's how coherent the energy is. And I think about that as I go about my life now with this energy. And first of all, I'm like, oh my God, is this how people live? Like, this is how people get shit done, because they're way more coherent than I've ever been. But, you know, things are a lot, like in my day-to-day life with looking after the children and cooking and cleaning, things are a lot, there's just this ease, there's just this sense of ease to a task that I didn't have before, and that's really powerful too. So like I said, it's a long way round to give a book review, and that's because you have to show up for yourself, and you have to love yourself enough to do the work, you know. See ya.